Introduce yourself. What's your name?
My name is Bob Whitaker. I'm 48 years old, a Leo.
How do you get the name Bob?
I'm named after a good friend of my father's, Bobby Kennedy. And he's my namesake.
Who's your dad?
Who's my dad?
Yeah.
Jim Whittaker, first American to climb Mount Everest, Seattle luminary, CEO of REI. I worked there for 25 years. Environmentalist, peace activist. Let's do it.
Bruce, who is Bob Whitaker?
Who is Bob Whitaker? Okay, pause, dramatic pause here. In 1995, if you were walking the outback in Australia and you told somebody you were from Seattle, they'd be going, oh, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, maybe Mudhoney. It's amazing to reflect on what that culture looked like at its very inception. And what it looked like was a handful of people drinking craft beer, rocking out and crowd surfing, and one of those guys was Bob Whitaker.
I knew of him just because of him being a big asshole at parties and shows and whatnot. But I'm driving up to Seattle one night. It was a Mudhoney show, and I see this car coming up behind me that's a convertible. And there's this white corkscrew hair flying everywhere. And I'm looking in my rearview mirror and I'm going like, oh, here comes some hot chick in a convertible. It pulls up alongside me and I look over and it's Bob and I went, ah, ah, and he just takes off.
So now Mudhoney shows everybody would be there, everybody in town.
Mudhoney was the loosest band you could ever see. You never knew what was going to happen. They could fall apart at any second. They brought a sense of, again, irreverence that became infamous. And Bob Whitaker had a lot to do with that.
What's your middle name?
Mudhoney was leaving for a tour, and they're like, yeah, we're going to bring this guy Bob along with us to help do the driving, because he doesn't know how to do anything else.
He was, drafted in to be our roadie. The joke is, if you asked him to help carry an amp or guitar, he'd like, carry it yourself. That's not mine.
No. Bob didn't lift a finger moving anything.
I gotta go to work. You gotta rock.
You gotta work, Bob. You're paid for something.
Bob, show you.
He'd be playing shows, and there'd be some kind of ruckus, and like some drunk guy in the corner, doing something that he shouldn't be doing. Who the hell is that guy? Like, oh, well, that's our manager. You're gonna be paying him later.
It's the Bob Show.
Oh, just where things just start happening, where he gets a little drunk and all of a sudden like a chair gets broken or a bottle gets broken or a window or
Things get lit on fire.
a knife gets thrown.
Darts and apples on heads.
So Bob Whitaker was the fifth member of Mudhoney. Even though he wasn't playing music, he toured with the band, he partied with the band, he represented Seattle, he represented Mudhoney. So if you partied with Mudhoney, you were partying with Whitaker.
One of the times we went down the West Coast without Bob, everybody at the shows were like, "Where's Bob?" Like Bob was more popular than us.
I mean, Bob was a legend and still is.
Okay, here we go. Let's see. Whitaker.
So that's good. This is the only mountain I've ever climbed. That's Mount Rainier in let's see, I don't know, I was 17. I was pretty exhausted. We got to the summit and I threw up my breakfast, which was a piece of toast and a Snickers bar. And then we went down and I was like, God, this is really not that fun.
Oh, rough stuff.
We were on tour somewhere and we were up in Massachusetts and he just got off the phone with his dad and he's like, "You should go visit Rose." And I go, "What are you talking about? Rose who?" And he's like, "Oh, Rose Kennedy." And he's like, "I should go to the Kennedy compound and give him a visit." And I go, "What are you talking about?" I go, "How do you know the Kennedys?" And he's like, "Oh, well, my dad climbed Mount Everest one time and blah, blah, blah."
Last time I saw my dad was, gosh, I don't even recall. Hey, how are ya? Good to see ya. You got your Woolrich on. How you doing? Good. Hey, dude. Good to see you.
Yep.
Did you come up last night?
Yeah. It's easier.
Jim Whittaker was Mr. Mountain. I mean, Mount Rainier, he'd been on Everest. So when you talk about mountains, you talked about Jim Whittaker.
Jim Whittaker was an iconic figure. The early 60s and Jim Whittaker being the first American on top of Everest.
Why climb the highest mountain? Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes.
It's of a piece with Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. These events weren't that far apart. When you start to know a little bit more about his identical twin, Lou, their history of climbing in the 1940s, 50s, back when climbing wasn't popular, these guys were way out front. You know, that was recognized in the invitation to be on that first American expedition on Everest. You know, no surprise that Jim Whittaker ended up leading the charge to the summit.
Awarded to the American Mount Everest Expedition 1963, Norman G. Durnforth, leader for outstanding contributions to geography through high-altitude research and exploration, conquest of Earth's highest peak by 6 courageous climbers, pioneering a West Ridge route and making the first summit traverse. Pretty cool. I have a great relationship with my dad. I've spent a lot of time kind of trying to live up to the legacy that he's passed down to me. And honestly, I mean, trying to make him proud, I think like every son does.
Boy, there's no snow out there, huh?
No, look at the mountains. There's not a lot of snow at all.
Jim was a type of person, he was always climbing with adults, and it was his livelihood.
I'm sure it was tough for somebody like Jim Whittaker to start a family, and then the nature of your thing you excel at is being halfway around the world for extended periods of time.
I think Bobby had a really different upbringing than I did. I'm guessing it was probably harder in many ways.
Bobby went out on his own pretty early. You know, at 18, he left that relationship and went and lived on his own, paid for his own place, didn't ask anyone for money, and was off and running.
I have had a very distant relationship with my father since I lived with him briefly for my high school years. You know, not only was he, building the franchise of REI, but he was an outdoor adventurer. That was his industry. So, leaving, being gone for large chunks of time was his work. That's incredibly difficult and taxing. It took a bite out of me for decades. I think it did him too, It's nice to be a part of something, and it's hard to remain a part of something when you keep leaving your hometown or your family.
Starting with presidents, there's Eisenhower here. And then there's Clinton, President Clinton, there's President Reagan.
I like your rain jacket. It looks like a 97-cent Kmart rain jacket. Yeah, cool. Here's the first American to climb Mount Everest in an old lady's rain slicker.
You met him on the plane?
Yeah, I met Bobby at SeaTac.
Is that at Sun Valley with Bobby and John Glenn?
Yeah. And that's at the tennis club. Christopher's there, I think.
Chris Kennedy?
Yeah, that's Chris.
My father had the same feeling about people like Jim Whittaker, John Glenn, and others that became his lifelong friends. He wouldn't want to do what they did, but he liked them for having done it.
Okay, this is when we first met. I showed you this one, I guess, from how dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rust unburnished, not to shine in use, as though to breathe were life. To seek a newer world. When we find it, I trust you'll haul me up it, from his friend Bob Kennedy.
This is where I live. Not like the Yukon, but next best thing. Here is, not this page it says. Here we are at the airport.
That's you and Kennedy?
Yes. I have to keep pinching myself to see whether I actually was there or not. It's been 50 years, and it almost seems like we were up there just a few years ago.
This was the scene at Arlington National Cemetery, Washington. John F. Kennedy, the president, had been torn from life by an assassin's bullet. His brother Robert paid homage to a great man who had set himself so many noble tasks, but whom fate had not allowed to carry them out.
Canadians were just as tragically stricken as the Americans were when they heard of the assassination. They wanted to do something. Prime Minister Lester Pearson, on November 20th, 1964, came to the floor of the House, said that I think it's very appropriate, my fellow commoners, that we find an unclimbed mountain somewhere in Canada, a suitable mountain, climb it, claim it, and then map the area. The Canadians weren't sure of what mountains had been climbed and which hadn't been climbed and everything. Bradford Washburn's director of Boston Museum of Science said, I've got a peak in the St. Elias Range that looks like a mountain. He says, it looks like the Matterhorn. And there's a plume of snow blowing off the summit. There's your mountain.
This was the peak that the government of Canada was to name in honor of President John F. Kennedy, partly because of its beauty and partly because its position almost on the international frontier symbolized the friendship between our two great nations, which President Kennedy so fervently espoused.
There's what got me mapping with Brad Washburn. We did this one. This is the mountains right around the house.
Why do you like maps?
Oh, I don't know, they tell you a lot. Maps tell you an awful lot. Especially if you know what goes into it. Then you can pick up the map years later and you can put your finger on any point and you say, oh yes, I remember the day we were there, I remember the angle that we turned, I remember the distance it was, and you can always go back to the map. It's sort of, I guess in a way, sort of like going back to nature.
Bradford Washburn ran the museum in Boston, and his new United States Senator was Ted Kennedy. Bradford invited him to be part of that mapping exercise the following March. Teddy was in a terrible plane crash in western Massachusetts. He lived, but he was unable to go. So I think he persuaded my father to do that. That was not something my father naturally wanted to do.
And so I was working for Bradford Washburn, and in the midst of it all, I get a call, how would you like to go to the Yukon? We're going to have a little expedition. We're going to map the area. And you're not going to believe this, but Senator Robert Kennedy has expressed a desire. He would like to be the first one on the mountain. And I said, I didn't know he climbed mountains. He says, he doesn't.
Why is this, after so many years and so much climbing around this area, why has Mount Kennedy been left?
It's inaccessible, has only recently been named as a individual peak. And of course, naming it Kennedy has made it quite an attractive climb.
The reason we wanted to climb it was named after the President of the United States and had never been climbed before. That's a perfect goal for a mountaineer.
Is this the best time of the year to do this?
Well, it's better than somewhat earlier. Temperatures should not get any lower than 35 below zero. And
does experience from Mount Everest help you in this climb?
It doesn't hurt.
We went to get the copies of maps from the Department of Mines and Technical Surveys, and there are these beautiful maps that were only about half colored in. The other half of the map were huge areas of white space, and in parentheses were the words, area unexplored, probably mountains and glaciers.
How about Senator Kennedy? Is he going to join you?
There is a good chance that he will, yes.
I get the call saying, could Senator Kennedy come on the climb? And so I said, oh, sure. Has he ever climbed before? They said no. I said, does he know the mountain has never been climbed? Yeah. And I said, he still wants to go? Yeah, it's okay. And that's when I called him and said, what are you going to do, getting in shape, Senator? And he said, yeah, I'm running up and down the stairs, practicing hollering, help. You know, and I thought, oh boy.
Here's the team, there's Jim Whittaker and the Senator, and I'm in the back row there. It was a coming together. It was a coming together of ideology, it was a coming together in sorrow. It was just one more situation where Canada and the US are the best of neighbors, and the fact that the Canadians went all out on this, it was a very gracious gesture. That's what I remember most about it.
You know, we spent a lot of time with Jim when we were little kids. He talked about Mount Kennedy, talked about our father, about how he handled himself on the mountain, and that set a high bar for all of the kids.
Look at the slopes, huh?
Yeah, cool snowshoes that you got there.
Yeah.
We were looking at this little gem here thinking, well, how can we promote that? How can we drill back down into that? There's only been a few pages in National Geographic about it, a few pages in Life magazine.
When I was on Everest in 2012 and 2010, I kind of had these experiences where I was following in my father's footsteps. Thinking about Mount Kennedy was really appealing to me because it was off the beaten path. Very few people had visited it. I mean, it's kind of the opposite of Mount Everest in many ways.
Probably Leif and I were speaking to Dad about going back and doing a 50 years after climb. The more we talked about it, the more it sounded like a keen idea.
I called up Jim Whittaker and Diane to try to have dinner with them, and I thought we were going out for a friendly drink and dinner, and in the middle of the thing, Jim started pushing this notion that this year would be the 50th anniversary of his climb with my father, and that, you know, someone needed to do that.
My dad basically said we should communicate with him and gave me his number. So I reached out, gave him a cold call.
And then some number from Western Washington got through, and it was Bobby trying to confirm the commitment that I'd somehow made.
Here are these Kodachrome pictures you're looking at and these stories you've heard, but the pieces aren't all there. What about this other aspect, you know, my namesake?
It'll be interesting to see what the mountain looks like after 50 years.
Yeah, real.
There's this notion that you get from talking to Jim Whittaker that in between commitment and confidence is character. He would commit to things that he was not confident that he could complete. And that is what shaped his character.
Yeah, it's go time.
How do you feel?
Out of shape, fat, old, faded, but excited.
Why do you think Bob wants to climb Mount Kennedy?
Maybe I don't know Bob that well.
What have you gotten me into?
You know, I'm not sure exactly why, but I know it's important.
Did you ever know Bob to be a physically fit person? Physically active?
Bob to what?
Not only do I sit behind a desk all the time, I follow that with a 5-hour dinner of rich food and wine. My philosophy has always been, I never had one.
Once Bobby has set the hook, you know, he's on his way. Mountains and wilderness always bring out the best in people, you know.
Off like a herd of turtles. Hi.
Hi.
Good.
Well, yeah, if you could just fill that out, and then if you have an insurance card, I can take a copy of.
Does stress burn calories? I mean,
I think it does, yeah. I'm pretty sure it does.
I was like, oh yeah, I can handle this. I'll do, you know, I'm gonna ramp up my exercise. It just doesn't happen. Didn't happen. Hasn't happened. You know.
Plus, you're crushingly old at this point too.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. I'll follow you. We'll go up there. Have a seat. Two things. One, your big picture plan.
Yeah. Life change.
What'd you say?
Life change.
Is it?
Simple as that. Yeah.
Is it? What have you been doing?
Oh, not exercising enough. That's about it. I feel like I'm in pretty bad shape, but I'm luckily I quit my job last Friday.
I don't know if he's in a rut or if it's a midlife crisis that he's trying to come out of or what he's doing.
When's the climb?
May. First 2 weeks in May.
Okay, so May 1st is our jump-off date, essentially.
Yeah.
In part, I might have put it on my horizon to give myself a little bit of a pause or a different direction or a different perspective.
I'm a little worried about it because the knee's been bothering me that much.
Yes.
So,
yeah. So, from there, let me have you bend forward like you're gonna touch your toes. Cool. And then back up. Cool. Do you stretch?
No, God.
Good. Don't. And then one more on the left side. Cool. You're doing exceptionally adequate. Keep going. Come up. There we go. Own those last few degrees. Back on your heels. Excellent. This is our timeline. So here's today. This is May 1st, Mount Kennedy.
I think he's partly going out there to see what he can do, see if he can climb Mount Kennedy, see if he can handle it physically and emotionally, and learn something about himself along the way.
He's going to do this anyway. Why don't we just make him as functional as we can? Knees, hips, back, shoulder, heart, and we go from there.
Finally, a functional Bob.
Yes.
Yeah, that's...
Physiologically, I can't make any promises.
Do I have time for a cigarette?
Matt, is it rolling? Is it rolling right now?
What you're about to see is several years of footage taken of Mudhoney. We are leaving today.
My arms are twisted. The only thing I miss is I messed up. I missed it. I messed up. Reminiscing of you. It's getting to sound like they've seen you around.
So Bob, what are you gonna do this whole tour?
In the same way that Jim helped get REI off the ground, Bob Whitaker shares a similar drive, sense of adventure, and a DIY spirit. He helped get Sub Pop Records off the ground and the grunge culture off the ground. He was in the trenches. He was out there representing Seattle back in 1988, where they went all the way to New York in a van where all the carbon monoxide was funneling back into the van, and they had to huff that for 3,000 miles.
This is an hour after Bob had an ice cream cone at McDonald's.
I just like to have a little snack on the road to keep me going.
Working with Mudhoney was incredible. Like, traveling in a baby blue $900 van turned into managing Mudhoney, signing them to Warner Brothers Records, hiring more and more crew as their career grew. It was pretty cool.
Sorry. You want me to look more tragic back here? Oh my God, no. This is us in Hawaii. We went and did a show with Pearl Jam and I think maybe Sonic Youth. I remember Vedder twisting his feet into the sand so he looked really short on purpose. Man, a bunch of ugly white people from Seattle going to Hawaii is what it was. That's that.
After a while, some founding members left Mudhoney and they were taking a break. I was debating going back to carpentry or, who knows what. And then a job position opened up with REM, and I went on the road with those guys, and I ended up tour managing them for 12 years, I think.
I know you
as a tour manager, kind of stepped into the upper echelons of that. I mean, he was road managing REM, pretty much the top of the food chain as far as alternative music goes.
3 miles of bad road.
Over the years, I've worked with a lot of different acts, you know, from Rufus Wainwright, Nico Case, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, one of my favorites.
Me high, she's a real woman child. Oh, my kiss, breath, turpentine.
I would go on the road and you're running on a lot of adrenaline. You know, you've got a lot of people to worry about. You're in 3 countries in one day sometimes. And that's been my career. I would come home and screeching to a halt wasn't easy, you know. I'd be wanting to cut in line in the supermarket.
My crush with eyeliner.
The entertainment business in general can be very intense. And I'm really happy that Bob chose to check out of that when he did, because it'll grind you down.
Growing up, I think Bobby and I always had actually a pretty strong connection. We laughed a lot. I just remember, you know, him cracking me up. Like, he's a jokester, a prankster, and he always has been, and I love that about him. But we didn't really spend much time together. Reconnecting with him, I think he's definitely mellowed out a little bit and grown up, and I think he's also kind of grown more connected to the outdoors.
I guess we all grow up eventually and get tired, too tired to do all the shenanigans you did when you were young. Think that's it, or do you think he's really matured?
I think it was when he got the place in Ferry County.
For the past 10 years, Bob has been working out in Ferry County on this trails project. It's a 30-mile trail that's open to the general public. It's an amazing project. Bob had the vision to make this happen, and he had the political will to get it passed.
You know, his passion is now wilderness. He's a lot like his dad in many ways.
In REM, I found a lot more dovetailing of that punk idealism and civic duty and community. Those guys are huge with giving back to the community and making an effort in their town of Athens, Georgia. And so I learned a lot from those guys. There's a disconnect that's happened over the years. There needs to be a greater focus on public lands. There needs to be a greater focus on outdoor activity and focusing on that project and seeing it to fruition. I mean, it's legacy work. It's taking forever. It's all culminating in this trail for me. Came full circle. I was like, aha, this is why I do this. Because of these chuckleheads in 1965 that met on Mount Kennedy.
Jim, what do you think about your sons following your footsteps on this climb?
I'm proud of them, you bet. I think it's great. I mean, any excuse to get out and climb mountains, what the heck? Enjoy this magical planet.
After 50 years, this becomes the culmination, the final chapter of the Mount Kennedy Yukon expedition.
What you're looking for won't be found easily. It grows upon the mountain in a secret place. Up beyond the clouds in ancient ground, so they say. And many men have died trekking up that way.
Thought you had a friend. Fuck. Holy shit.
That's a lot taller.
Where are we going?
The Yukon?
Yucatan?
That's my
good
favorite.
example.
They're big.
Is that it? Thank you.
Oh, I feel sick.
I don't know why I haven't been losing weight.
Fucking dick. All right. Yeah, let's go there.
Dude. Fuck, Bob Gubbies. All right. I'm done. I'm done.
Forbiddingly standing 14,000 feet in the frozen Yukon is Mount Kennedy, named after the late president. Highest unclimbed peak in the North American continent, its challenge is now accepted by another Kennedy, Senator Robert.
When I first met Bobby, he flew in from Washington, D.C.
Any mountain 14,000 and temperatures of extreme cold present difficulties. However, I don't think it's anything that could not be overcome by our party. If this proves a successful climb, Senator, will you plan more? I don't think so. I'm not much. Jim Whittaker talks to me. I'm not talking. No, I don't like fights.
You got to be afraid to fight. That's a blessing, because I wouldn't climb with you. I wouldn't rope up with you if you weren't, because you'd kill us.
Yeah, Jim Whittaker, I'll bet he knew the pressure was on, taking Robert Kennedy out in the mountains. These weren't lessons that he was learning for the first time, that there was a lot on the line and that public failure wasn't acceptable. When I say that, I don't mean getting to the top of a mountain or not, but I mean hurting an important person or getting an important person killed.
We flew into Whitehorse. That was where we were looking for our next way into the base of the mountain in a chopper. I remember Brad was influential in getting us a flight in because the ski plane couldn't make it, but the Canadian Air Force chopper was sitting there idling. Washman walked over, I saw him talking to the pilot, and he come back and said, "We got a ride."
I had never seen anything like it. Flying over these glaciers. No, I mean, I'd never seen anything like the Yukon. Never seen it like it.
A helicopter made the first 9,000 feet the easiest, bringing the senator, his fellow climbers, and all the gear up to the first base camp. Though not a mountain climber, Robert Kennedy gladly accepted the invitation to be the first man at the hitherto unconquered summit. All he had to do now was to get there, an undertaking that would have daunted most men new to mountain climbing. A remarkable family, these Kennedys, with a habit of accomplishing whatever they set out to do. Jim Whittaker, first American to climb Everest, is in charge of the expedition.
There was a little bit of training required. Don't step on your rope with your crampons on. Keep your head down, keep breathing. I think the senator was quite taken with Jim.
On the plane, we got to know each other, and then, of course, on the mountain, you know, when you climb on a serious mountain, you develop this thing.
In a way, they were an odd couple. In a way, they sort of admired each other's profession. Of course, the senator would say to Jim, boy, this is a mighty hazardous occupation that you've chosen here. I mean, this is dangerous stuff you're doing. You could lose your life doing this. Very ironic observation.
It was a gorgeous, chilly spring day. Temperature a bit below zero, with a brisk little wind out of the north.
And the weather was beautiful. God, it was nice weather. And just a light wind, maybe 5 knots, you know.
At 13,000 feet, you come to a great plateau out of which the summit pyramid of Mount Kennedy rises. Here they stop, rearrange their ropes, put on ice creepers, and prepared for the ascent of this final summit pyramid that rose about 800 feet out of the glacier. Jim Whittaker ahead, Senator Kennedy second.
Coming up, it's really steep, and I'm sure he'd fall. It's hairy because it drops off on each side. So I was waiting for him to fall, but he didn't. He came right up in my steps, and he's walking up, and I said, stop there. That's the summit, Bobby, and it's your mountain. You go first. You go first. I was so delighted because I wanted him to get up there. And so he was the first human being to stand on the peak named after his brother. I mean, that's one of the, where the tears freeze on the parka, you know. It just, we were bawling. It was really emotional.
These days we all talk about how adventurous we are, but when you're smacked in the face with the repercussions of adventure, which involves making mistakes and dealing with the consequences, that's a different thing.
Mount Kennedy is so rarely climbed, and there's so little known about it. There's been maybe 30 expeditions in history up there. It was really hard to know what we were getting ourselves into.
We might almost want to drive back.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Yeah. Pleasure. I'm glad you made it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I had to fly from Chicago to Vancouver.
Yeah.
And then Vancouver to Whitehorse. But the most dangerous part was the last
driving
hour.
with Bobby.
He kept asking me questions.
So we met Brian Jones and Rich, our two guides that we'd be working with up on the mountain. We started to sit down and talk about our strategy for climbing there.
One of my concerns went onto a big mountain with a group such as this, but what I mean by such as this is that we've got...
Careful.
It's a very diverse level of experience. We got a lot of different objectives going on here that we're looking after. Ultimately, we all have the same objective, get home.
Yeah. I was sitting there and kind of realized I'm the youngest person on the team, but I'm also one of the most experienced, and I'm responsible for all these people like Bobby, who's 18 years older than me, and Chris, who's more than 20 years older than me, and thinking of all the things that could go wrong and all the things that could happen, and I didn't sleep much that night.
Once we're on that glacier, there's no guarantees of when we're coming off.
Brian, who was familiar with the area, was super candid, very honest about what we were getting into. But nobody had actually climbed the mountain.
The pilot's plan would be to come in the back side. So here's the mountain right there.
Okay, and then he'll come follow these glaciers and then come into the cathedral. So many other sports or activities, the great preparation comes from recreating your mind, the experience you're about to have. But for me, the idea of imagining for hours on end what it's like to stand on that peak is not helpful.
So we sit down for the first meeting with the guides, and they drop on us that they're very worried about these two ice falls that have opened up a lot more since 1965, which makes sense. Global warming, mountains change, whatever, glaciers move.
Well, I'm fine with what he said and the changes.
Yeah.
You are too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. We'll be fine. Can you stop recording?
This is one of the best ones no one has ever seen. It's a great picture, and it was on the mountain. When he came down from the mountain, Jim was so impressed with Bobby, and they became really good friends from that moment on.
On that climb, Bobby and my dad both looked up to each other, admired each other, and I think inspired each other.
When he went back, he wrote, "It's such a pleasure to climb with people that spend time outdoors, and I'm glad that I could join this fraternity of those that challenge themselves."
It was so up close and personal, the relationship my father had with him.
After the climb, Bobby went straight back to Washington, D.C. But while they climbed, they decided that we would go down a river together.
One day anybody here see my old friend Bobby? Can you tell me where he's gone?
This is the Colorado. Then there's Bobby, there's me, there's Jim, our children, their children.
July 4th, 1965. So this is not long after they climbed Kennedy and became fast friends. There's John Glenn and I think my brother Scott Whitaker. This is a really pretty photo. I don't know if the family's ever even seen this. That's Ethel and Bobby on the river float.
All those river trips, I don't care how famous the people were. We all threw our sleeping bags down on the gravel and went to sleep.
My old friend Martin, can you tell me where he's gone?
Then they were like jet setting. They were in Sun Valley. That's Andy Williams. Here's Andy Williams drunk, mugging Ethel Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy and my mom, Blanche. Them partying on Onassis' yacht. Dad and Ethel, 1971 at Christmas somewhere. Looks like a crappy house. It must have been ours.
You were kind of his way to get away from all the stress.
In a sense, yeah, that's true. And that's something that he said to me.
I am announcing today my candidacy for the presidency of the United States. I run because it is now unmistakably clear that we can change these disastrous, divisive policies only by changing the men who are now making them.
You have my father that comes from a retail background. He loves the outdoors. And he said he didn't know he was a Democrat until he met Bobby Kennedy. To not know you're a Democrat until you're 35, it sounds crazy to me.
Jim was not comfortable being political. In fact, he told me one time the only place he was comfortable was standing next to a tree.
He had a high profile after the Everest climb, even higher profile after that Kennedy climb. And so for my father, that took his advocacy and politics up a notch.
Jim Whittaker was the last person I'd ever think would become involved in politics. He just had to kind of come in from the outdoors, and Bobby went out.
Bobby tapped Dad to be his campaign manager for Washington and Oregon.
I run to seek new policies. Policies to close the gaps that now exist between black and white, between rich and poor, between young and old, in this country and around the rest of the world.
Dad, Mom, Bobby, Ethel touring the Columbia River and then on their way to Portland as a campaign stop.
I was very close to Bobby, and especially on the campaign. He always called me Madge, never Blanche, changed my name.
There's images where my dad's like, you know, almost bodyguard-esque, you know, this tall guy with Bobby. There's like all these, you know, amazing stories.
We just all got along, and I'm a better person for knowing Bobby and Ethel.
I'd say that there's this notion of what are we doing to protect the world that we all share. And that was not in the American consciousness in the 1960s.
There are laws that we can pass about dumping and throwing refuse in lakes and streams and into the air. And I think that's what's going to make the difference in this country.
Jim Whittaker influenced my father, and his whole life has been about protecting our planet. And to do that, he knew we all needed to get out and see the place.
I think at this point, probably we're gonna end up landing at 8,700 feet, right where Bobby Kennedy and Jim Whittaker landed 50 years ago.
Oh, I'm so excited. This has been a long time coming. 50 years in the making.
When we were kids and we wanted to challenge each other, we would declare an event or an obstacle or a possibility, a Whittaker challenge. And if something was declared a Whittaker challenge, you had to try it. That tradition's been passed along from my generation to the next, and every single one of them is a better person as a result of it. Tomorrow is my Whittaker challenge. I've never felt so remote, you know, so far away from help, so isolated as when that helicopter took off.
Your dad, Leaf and Bobby's dad, they would have taken the route on up through here as well, so yeah. Following in your dad's footsteps.
Nice.
Quite literally here.
Yeah, couldn't be happier.
What we're doing is we're packing our sleds to take a few loads to the base camp. This is the drop zone where the helicopter is. It's not all that ideal because there's some high hanging ice up there.
So are you scared of those things up there?
No, there's not much debris down there, but later in the summer they might warm up and start dropping like flies. Hell yes, I'm scared. Jesus Christ, look at them.
So the plan is, pending weather, we'll get up in the morning and just take our time going up, assessing the route as we go. I'm thinking it's going to take 2 to 3 hours to get to the final steep pitch that gets us up onto the summit plateau. That's it.
That part where your dad talked about looking out down at the exposure and just being terrified, wondering what he got into. I think that's that moment on that arete up top where you can look off one side maybe and
thanks for the
see
reminder.
a long ways down.
that'll do a lot for the good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Now you have what else do you have to share?
But I don't sleep good too. Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder what you've gotten us into. Hey Bobby, let's climb Mount Kennedy.
Sometimes I wonder why I brought Bobby on this trip.
Hey Bobby, I got a great idea. Let's climb Mount Kennedy. It's like Mount Baker.
You can vote one person off the team. Who would it be?
Myself. No, it's this trip is amazing. It's swimming in mystique, and we're drowning in personalities.
It's about 6:54 a.m. We're just getting ready to set off for our summit bid. Yeah, I've been thinking about this for many years and it's really special.
The plan is to eat some bad oatmeal and get geared up, roped up, and make a summit bid. Pretty exciting. Let's do it.
Years ago, Jim Whittaker came here and he brought my father to honor the Kennedy family. And because of all the things he's done for us, I'm here this year to honor Jim Whittaker.
You're in this place where they were, you know. All the history just kept it's just playing over and over in my head every step as we walk uphill. 100 feet out of camp, 1,000 feet out of camp, 2 hours out of camp. You know, I was glad we had rope lengths between us because I was like crying and I didn't want people to know.
Altimeter in there, kinda. Sometimes.
That was an easy 800 feet.
I think the Whitakers take big steps.
All right, Brian, we're all good.
There was a moment, kind of a realization, where it dawned on me that we had talked Chris Kennedy into coming with us. I was concerned for his safety more than anything. I didn't want Chris to get hurt.
At one point, Chris was ahead of me, and I wasn't sure what he was saying. He kind of said something like, I'm going in, or I'm going down, or sort of kind of tossed it off. And he said it again. I looked up, and I could see what he meant was he was going into a crevasse. I just put the line taut so he wouldn't fall far if he did go in. And I don't know if you've ever tried to roll with a backpack on, but Chris did an amazing job, but he rolled the wrong way, and it kind of opened up even more. So then I just said, screw it, I'm gonna pull him back and out. So I just started reversing downhill, and that kind of popped him out of the hazard zone up onto the lip. The same scenario happened from like a 65 climb. They dropped Bobby into a crevasse, like waist deep. Every 50 years, we like to drop a Kennedy in a crevasse up on Mount Kennedy just for fun.
I fell, and I didn't die. That's about it.
We were going slow, probably because of our inexperience. You haven't slept, you're an emotional wreck. Chris falls in a crevasse, we keep going, the wind picks up. It was really windy up high.
45-mile-an-hour winds sweeping across that ridge line, and we were up at probably 12,500 feet at that point. It was about 6 p.m. when we got up to the summit plateau. People were a little intimidated when they saw that, and people were also already really tired. The decision was really obvious. We needed to turn around.
So let's talk a bit about how you heard about the assassination and the news surrounding that.
Yeah, God, I don't know that I want to talk much about that. That was bad.
The night of the California primary, a few of the Kennedy people met with a number of uncommitted delegates in the presidential suite of the Olympic Hotel. TV sets were on. There was gay exuberance as the primary results came in. A speaker was hooked up to the telephone to broadcast the voice of Senator Kennedy. At 11 o'clock p.m., Senator Kennedy spoke to our audience and asked us to help him seek his goals. I thanked him for the call and said, "Congratulations, Bob. Keep up the good work. We love you."
My mother was with the campaign and with Ethel at the Ambassador Hotel when Bobby was shot.
Jim was in Seattle when he heard about the assassination, and he got on a plane as fast as he could and got down there.
Got a cab to the hospital. They were barricading the doors, and I told them who I was, and they let me in. I went up to Bobby's room.
Jim had Ethel put on a gurney and put beside Bobby so she could hold his hand.
He was on a breathing machine, still alive, but he wasn't going to make it. You could tell. He was brain dead. And Teddy pulled the plug on the machine, and we held Bobby, held hands and held Bobby, and that was it.
I knelt by his bed, held his hand and Ethel's hand, and cried for what she had lost, for what those who knew him had lost, and for what those that had never known him had lost. I cried for the ones that might never say, "I am a better man because I knew him."
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of
flew back on Air Force One. Johnson gave us the plane to fly Bobby back.
Where the grapes of wrath are stored.
First we lose the president, and then we lose Robert Kennedy, who's talking about civil rights. He says there's a growing gap in wealth accumulation. He's concerned about the environment, and I guess Jim Whittaker probably sensitized him even more than he was. Many of the same issues that are with us today.
At the church, Andy sang without accompaniment the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Glory, glory.
When we came out of the church, there were thousands of people all singing that song as we came out with Bobby. Anyway, it was that was tough. We lost a hell of a good guy.
I saw my father drop down on his knees at Bobby's grave and start to cry. And I'd never seen that before, and I'd never seen it since. And so it's, you know, here's your father, who's also sort of a superhero, brought to tears. It was intense.
Our God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
You know, anybody who loses a parent, a mother or a father, suffers greatly. I'd say the bullet that kills the father wounds the child. And unless you have someone like Jim Whittaker who can step in, who can provide those parental experiences, who can encourage you, guide you, give you confidence, tell you, no, you can do this, you can accomplish that, the river's not too fast, that water's not too deep, the ocean's not too rough, the mountain's not too tall, you can do this, then you suffer. And Jim Whittaker came into our lives, and he gave us all great confidence.
One piece of lead stopped a brilliant, wonderful opportunity for the country and the world. It just stopped it. We lost a good man.
Bobby and Dad left the tire clips up here in '65. And I don't know, I found one in the house somewhere a while ago.
Done what we could to honor our parents, honor your father, my father, Jack. Gotta remember to pay tribute to the living as well. Get ourselves back safe.
I've got this.
That's the most important thing. So you go.
Let's go get down safe.
Let's get out of here.
Get down safe.
As he moved to seek the newer world, he said, each time a man stands up for an ideal or goes to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple, the ripple of hope.
I wanna see a revival, yeah.
What we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another, feeling of justice toward those who still suffer within our country.
Means my soul survival.
For me, this climb was about exploring all these different emotions and connecting with my brother, building a team, and being a part of an adventure, drilling down into this beautiful history that shaped my family and me and the Kennedys.
And why am I so blind? With my eyes wide open.
I'm proud of my friend. I've been proud to be his friend. To see him take on a big challenge at a certain time of his life is impressive.
In the rapids of the Salmon River and drifting down the Colorado, skiing at Sun Valley and paddling down the Hudson, my wife and children watched the magic of Bob Kennedy, and we grew to love him. He gave inspiration and hope to those of us who knew him, and even to those who did not. We love you, Bobby.
We try to plunge ourselves into these situations, into these depths of challenge and loneliness and overwhelming emotions of fear and danger, in order to conquer them in a relatively safe space, knowing that life, without our permission, is going to plunge us into those same situations time and again. And at least now we'll know how to get ourselves out.
So, Bobby?
We didn't leave anything up there, did we?
Like one of those things. Right on, Chris.
Actually, I'm trying. You know, you come off of that thing, and you can't but help having even more admiration for your father and for mine.
That's what I was just thinking.
Incredible. It's incredible.
I mean,
I didn't think it'd be possible to have more admiration.
Out.
Yeah.
All right, what are we doing for our next project? Oh.
50 years ago, about this time, there was a very impressive effort, the mapping of Mount Kennedy. And we have Malcolm Taylor here.
And I think it's safe to say that maybe the Kluane National Park in Canada, the initiative, at least for that, or the groundswell for creating that, I think may have come from this project. So a lot of good came from it. And 50 years later, here we are, back at it. I've got a new book full of notes I'm taking, and we're still learning from the experience 50 years later. So that's it. And here's the result of all our effort up there on Mount Kennedy. I guess the wild places have a way of bringing us back to who we are. Whether you're right here in Holderness, New Hampshire, or whether you're in the Yukon Territory or the far reaches of Alaska, it's a way of sort of bringing us home. We are, we are rooted in it. We are rooted in nature.
Hang on, I'm going for it.
You are on the fastest route. You will arrive at 12:03 p.m.
Nailed it. I hear that these documentaries can be like traps for midlife crisis. If this is that, I'd like it to be a special midlife crisis.
This was, I think, on our summit day, climbing out.
Here I am crying.
Did anybody drop in a crevasse? Or I don't think.
We dropped Chris in a crevasse.
Did you?
Chris.
Yeah. Good.
I think for me the biggest takeaway is connecting with you, Bobby, and
totally.
Reconnecting and sharing that experience
Yeah.
together and planning it and climbing together.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just fun, like being in the tent, joking around.
Nice.
Yeah, it was...
Part of that was fun.
I mean, we all the stuff we've done on our own, but the best is having a nucleus of a close friendship.
With Bob sinking knives into the wall, baseballs into the wall.
Back into it.
Are you proud of your sons for what they've done?
I couldn't be more proud. Even if they didn't climb mountains, they're wonderful human beings. And I couldn't be more proud of them. They're a credit to the human race, no question.
Please join me in welcoming the next governor of the state of Illinois, Christopher.
What you're looking for be found easily. It grows upon the mountain in a sacred place. Up beyond the clouds in an ancient ground, so they say. And many men have died trekking up that way.
Hi.
How old are you? 70? What is it? 72?
No, it's 84.
Oh, we're gonna miss you.
Once he's gazed upon her, a man is forever changed. The bravest men return with darkened hearts and phantom pain. Ages come and go, but her life goes on the same. She lives to see the sun and feel the wind and drink the rain. Her colors change to mark the passing of the days. No earthly sight can match the beauty she displays.